How old is too old to become a police officer? What are the advantages and disadvantages of applying to be a police officer when you're older, in your 30s, in your 40s, maybe even in your 50s? I'm going to use my experience, my 20 years in law enforcement, to help you answer these questions and to understand and prepare if that's something that you want to do. So, I'm going to start out with my experience as a police recruit. I was 24 when I started. The oldest person in my class was 45, and she passed and she went on to be a good cop. So, if you're wondering, oh man, I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 40s, is it possible? That's just my own police academy experience with 40 cops. There are so many other examples out there, and let's talk about a few of them. What about at the age of 50? Is it still possible? Could you be a good cop? Are there lots of cops out there that are 50? Yeah, absolutely. Or even in their 40s. I've worked patrol, frontline policing, night shifts, all that as a 40-year-old. So it's totally possible. And there's no reason you couldn't start your career like that. So there are examples. There's one, Chris Fetter was hired at 50 years old by the Temple University Police in Pennsylvania. And he said it's been his life's dream to be a police officer. Well, you get to go do other things. And then when you decide that's what you really want to do, you can go and do it. But even 50 isn't the max. So there's also Albert Robertson, who at the age of 58 got hired and became a police recruit and police officer with the Kansas City Department. So things are changing. There used to be more harder caps. There are still some for some agencies, and we'll talk about that later in this video. However, there are agencies that are opening up their recruiting because they value the life experience that older candidates bring. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience training police officers of different ages so you can understand some of the strengths and the weaknesses. I've had police recruits where they're straight out of university. They're in their early 20s, and honestly, some in their 20s did well, some in their 20s really struggled. Okay, sometimes it's hard to have sufficient life experience to go and tell someone their loved one's dead, to go to a really messed up domestic where everyone's arguing and you need to be the one to sort it out. That's not easy to do. So, whereas I've had recruits that were well into their late 30s, and honestly, it was an easier transition for some of them in some ways. Things like running a radio. Well, they'd been in the military, they'd basically, been in combat. Well, the stress of policing is easier to handle and manage when you've been through that kind of stress. So it can actually be your strength to have had experiences like that and to be older. So what I want to help you learn to do is to learn how to leverage your strengths and make this a strength because there can be weaknesses with being older. It's easier to be fit when you're older. That's going to be one of the natural strengths for young people. So if you're older, you might need to work a little bit harder. Okay. Now, some of the big federal agencies, the three-letter agencies in the US, many of them do have like hard caps on age. So that it might be if your dream had been to be, in the ATF or the FBI, things like that, and you're say you're over 40 and you're not able to get a waiver exemption with military experience, stuff like that, then that you may be capped out. However, do you want to be a cop or do you want to be a police officer in a specific organization? Because there, as these examples show, there are still many other agencies that can and will hire you, but you're going to have to work really hard. You're going to have to turn what can be a weakness for many people, which is the physical fitness, into a strength. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about some of these pros and cons. So, number one, as I've seen in my time doing police hiring and police interviews, is life experience. When you sit down for your interview and we say, okay, tell me about a time you had to make a hard decision. Tell me about a time you used effective communication. Well, if you're 22, you may not have nearly as many experiences to draw from. Whereas if you're 42, you've lived a long life and you should have those experiences. And if you don't, then maybe you don't have the experience to be a police officer. But most likely you have more experiences that you can draw from to your benefit. Also, many older people have more maturity. So that's another strength is that, in our 20s, we make more bad decisions. Our brain isn't finished developing until we're like 25. So we're still sometimes making more bad decisions when we're young. You also should have more of a pattern of good decisions and good behavior. Many of us have done something stupid in our lives. People worry about the disqualifiers, the I stole something, I did drugs, you know. For example, you tried smoking marijuana in junior high school, maybe high school. Okay, and now you're 22. Well, they might not be ready to hire you yet. That might not be enough time. If you smoke marijuana in high school and you're now 40 and you have 20 plus years of not doing any drugs, they should be very confident that you are not at risk, that you're going to be doing more drugs. So, again, this is where that maturity, that life experience goes from being a weakness and is actually one of your strengths. Another strength is that you bring more work experience. Even if you're not doing things in the law enforcement field, maybe you were in sales, maybe you were in the service industry. You often were dealing with people. You have more experience of dealing with difficult people, of knowing how to talk to people, how to be a good listener, all those kind of things you've worked on. Maybe you even had experience as a supervisor, so you know what it's like to manage people. I'll give you an example, but I was observing police cadets at the police academy, and I'm used to what the normal standard was. And then I watch someone where they have a use of force incidents, they do a takedown, they got the guy down on the ground, they're on top of him. And one candidate in particular, all of a sudden just took a breath, looked around, and made sure that he was safe. There was no one else around, no one coming to get him, kind of thing. And I was like, wow, that person has an advanced level of situational awareness. Well, it turns out he'd been a major in the military. So he'd switched over to becoming a law enforcement, and his 20-ish years in the military really served him well. And he went on to be a really good police officer. So the experiences you bring, they don't necessarily need to be in the military, although that can help you. You need to think that some of those experiences will help you. Those are your strengths. Every police applicant has some strengths and some weaknesses. Okay. There's no perfect candidate. So you want to minimize your weaknesses and highlight your strengths. So know that your experiences are a part of your strength. That will show up in your interviews. That will show up in your field training. That will show up when you're actually out there doing the job. And that's really what it's all about. It also, what your work experience can show is a higher level of confidence. You've already learned different jobs, different roles. You can learn this one. It can demonstrate an ability to learn. If you've evolved and had different roles, maybe different professions, different jobs, you can show that I learned this one. Then I had to become a supervisor. I had to learn how to manage people. I had to learn, different parts of the job, and it builds up the likelihood that they'll expect you have a high ability to learn. It also just brings some intangibles, like the amount of life experience you've gained can really benefit you. The next up can be education. You've had more time to do more education. If you don't have any education, sign up for a course. Like literally the difference between someone who has high school and someone who has a university course or a college course, a post-secondary course, now you can say you've done some. Like when they're ticking the boxes, when they're looking at candidates, it's, well, that person has high school. That person has some university, even if you've only done a course or a couple courses. So if you don't have any of that, that's okay. But maybe that's one thing you could look at. Could you sign up for some sort of writing course, English course, anything around the law, that kind of stuff was probably going to be looked at favorably. So you could sign up for something like that, and that will, be one more thing that kind of helps push you up just a little bit in comparison to other candidates. So those are some of the strengths that come with being an older applicant. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the weaknesses. And ultimately, the biggest one is as we age, our physical abilities start to deteriorate for a lot of us. So if you're in your 40s, it's harder to keep up with people in their 20s, and you're going to have a competitive process. So many places are going to have a run, a fitness test, push-ups, that kind of stuff of what you need to be able to show that you can do physically. So you're going to have to train. Like if this is what you want to do, you got to be willing to put in the work to show that you can do this. And I've seen people in their 40s go to SWAT tryouts or emergency response team tryouts and rock it. Like they go to a week-long tryout, their own version of like a mini hell week kind of idea, and they do fantastic. There's no reason in your 40s that you can't do that too. And wherever your fitness is, you might say, well, that's not me. I'm not very fit. Guess what? Time to start. Okay. Your fitness is a reflection of your activity, your workouts, your runs, those kind of things, your nutrition, your recovery, your sleep. Most of that you can learn and you can change, but you have to be willing to. And I've seen people, I've sat on interviews with someone who tried to pass the physical, ran it 30 times, failed it every time, and then they finally passed. And now most people will take that as, oh, wow, that's amazing. I would not hire that person because the fittest you'll ever be for most people is in the hiring process. As you get into night shifts, your fitness will deteriorate. And the fitness standard is not meant to be something you pass once. It's meant to be a demonstration that you have enough of an active lifestyle that you can maintain that bar of fitness throughout your career. Because the reason it's there is people are going to rely on you. You might get in a fight for your life. You might have to chase someone. Your partners might be counting on you. It's not just, well, I passed that test once. And here's what I've seen people where they lose 50 pounds and then they finally pass the test. And guess what happens 5 years later? They've put all the weight back on and they could never pass the test again. And they never will. And we don't want to hire someone like that. We want to hire someone who has a demonstrated ability to maintain that fitness. So to me, that person, good on them. You couldn't pass the test. You worked really hard. You ran a bunch of times. I would need at least a year of you maintaining that fitness to believe that you can maintain it going forward. If you just manage to barely pass it once, as a recruiter, as someone doing hiring, when they get asked for basically a thumbs up or thumbs down, is it a go, no go? I would say no go. I would say not ready, deferred, like at least a year, maybe even 2 years. Give them time to prove that that is now a part of their lifestyle. And if you come back and now you can show that, awesome. So, what do you do about the fitness? If that's the biggest area, that's the biggest hurdle. And I'll say it's hard as someone who's worked night shifts, patrol, all that at 40 years old. It was a lot harder than it was for me at 25, especially if you got kids, sleep, recovery, all that just takes longer. And the times when you get stuck late, they really add up. So, here's what you can do, a couple of things you can work on. Work on your steady state cardio. So as simple as you don't need anything, just go for a jog. Go for a jog and run at a pace where you can kind of barely talk, but it's like a little bit challenging. And if you can get more advanced in your metrics, I have a Whoop, which basically can tell me my heart rate. So you want your heart rate to be in the like range of about 130. So maybe high 120s up to about 140. And you want to just do a bunch of that. And that will train your body to be more efficient. So now your cardio will get better. The other thing you can do is like interval type work. So now you're trying to push up to max heart rate. This would be the equivalent of like sprints. Now, sprints are not the only way to do it, but it is actually a good way of doing it. So you could do cycling, you could do all kinds of other ways, whatever you like, rowing. But you want to do things where you do intervals where you go from like max effort and then you come back down, you let your body recover and you do max effort. If you do those things, you can dramatically turn your body around, change your body composition. I'll say when I started training for my, SWAT fitness, emergency response team is what we call it here. I lost about 30 pounds. So I went from about 215 to 185. And this is in a matter of months. Like my run time went from a 10:45 to within a couple months on run day, I ran a 9:38. And within another year or so, I got it down to about just over 9 minutes. That's what you can do. That's what I did in my, late 20s, early 30s. But even now, I've been training harder recently and I'm seeing huge improvements in my fitness. So, I'm 42. So you can totally do this even if you're in your 40s. This is totally doable. And it's something you need to prioritize because that's going to be the number one detractor. Do they think that you can still do this job, stay healthy enough, stay fit enough, and be here? Can they count on you? Because you have the other parts. Your advantage is you're probably more mature. You have more life experience. So, work on the weaknesses, work on the things they're going to be worried about. That's what's going to help you um, to overcome what they'd be concerned about. So let's talk a little bit about the department's perspective, because what we've actually seen is some departments have been making changes to their hiring so that they do hire, they allow hiring or they've loosened some of the age restrictions essentially. Um, so one of them is actually, I think I got it written down here. It was Cleveland, where they went from 40 to 55. Like they will hire someone in their 50s And it's because there's a recruiting shortage right now. We cannot find enough good police officers. It's a hard job. There's a lot of scrutiny in the public. Not a lot of people want to do it right now. So they're loosening. Okay, well, if you can pass the physical, let's go ahead. Let's give you a chance. Let's hire you. So yeah, anyway, so that's what the good news is within the profession. They are opening up more, opportunity for older applicants. And now it becomes on you. If this is something you want to do, then start dialing your fitness. And I have several videos you can find from my police academy videos. Look at my podcast episodes with Matt Domyancic. He's got 3 master's degrees and he was a D1 strength coach, where we go through how to prepare physically. So that's going to be the biggest thing you need to do. But then I also have a lot of videos about what to do for interviews, how to prepare. So you want to think of your examples that you have in your life, and you want to be able to have some stories that convey a bunch of the attributes they're looking for. Anything from decision making to flexibility to all that kind of stuff that will help you. And the last thing I want to highlight is to just tell the truth. So I got a question coming in here, so I'm just going to take it. So if someone went to an open PT and didn't pass, but then is able to pass the very next time, 2 to 3 months after, that will still look bad. No, actually, that looks great. That shows that you've worked hard. What I was trying to highlight about being concerned about candidates where they don't have a fitness as part of their lifestyle, and then they want to get hired, so they kind of will do the bare minimum to get hired. And then my concern is they will regress once they get hired and go back. So I think what you want to do is you want to be able to show, here's the changes I've made, here's how it's a part of my life. And if I'm a recruiter, depending on your lifestyle and my perception, if I'm satisfied that you've made those changes and they're going to stick, now I'm ready to hire you. But if I'm concerned that they won't stick, you're just doing this to get hired. And unfortunately, I have seen many recruits where they did it just to get hired. It's like, how can I do the bare minimum? We don't want someone who's doing the bare minimum. So you have to understand the fitness test is not designed to be, you pass this once, we've ticked the box and you're good to go. And I see it. I'm still in the profession, and there are tons of people that cannot pass the basic fitness test. Now, how does it make sense that we won't even let you be a cop without passing this test, but once you're in, you can keep being a cop, doesn't matter if you don't pass. The reason we have the test is this is the bare minimum for you to keep you safe. So it's not fair to you to let you in without it. And it's what's needed for us, for your peers. Because like when I'm working out, that's often what I'm thinking of. My buddy is over there, my buddy is in trouble, and I need to get there to help them. Like I would often be running, doing my interval sprints on the treadmill in the police station. There was a big window to look out, and I would imagine my buddy is over there and I need to go and help them. And that would give me the motivation, even when it was really hard, to keep going. So no, I don't think that looks bad at all. That's what they want to see. They want to see improvement. And for a lot of people, when you first apply, there'll be some sort of deficiency in your application. And that's something to work on. So, if you have any other questions, put them in, because I'm happy to answer some more. But I want to highlight one of the best things you can do is just apply. Tell the truth. Don't lie about anything. Because here's what you'll get when you apply. You'll get actual feedback. They'll tell you, you know what? We really love all your life experience. We're concerned that you only passed the fitness test by 5 seconds. So give it 6 months. Come back when you can pass that test by 15 or 20 or 30 seconds and show us that fitness has been a part of your life. And then we're willing to move forward. They basically set the bar. They'll tell you, right, what the answer is, because it's a competitive process. So often we have a lot of different applicants applying, and they all have different strengths and weaknesses. So like me, when I first applied, I had, basically finished playing a lot of really high level sports. I was super fit. I was finishing university, so I was well educated. I didn't have the life experience. I was immature. I would go out binge drinking. I was only a few years removed from having experimented with marijuana and losing my driver's license and a bunch of stupid decisions that young teenage boys make. Whereas for those older applicants, most of you aren't doing those things. And truly, if you're still doing them into your 30s and 40s, they're probably not hiring. You're probably not the right fit for law enforcement. If you were still doing drugs a couple years ago, if you've lost your license a bunch more times recently, they're probably not hiring you. Whereas we can forgive that a lot more in someone when they did that when they were really young. So, yeah, as I'll wind back to that question one more time. Good for you. That's what you should be doing. And good for you that you didn't quit. Good for you that you worked on it. Now double down. What you're doing is working. So keep doing more of that and know that you can keep getting better. And if you do, I think, the odds of you getting hired are really high. And then just think of where to go. Because so often it's like, well, that department didn't hire me. And I've seen it. There was someone I was helping. He was about in his 40s, early 40s, coming from a paramedic background and applying to police department and was not hired. And I suspect that his age was one of the factors as to why he was not selected and why they chose other candidates. But there were other departments. If he'd been willing to go to a different agency, specifically the one I'm with now, which is a federal, tens of thousands of police officers agency, I think they would have much more valued this person's massive skill set in medicine or as a paramedic, what they brought in terms of life experience, and would have been willing to look past okay, well, you're a little bit older. All right. Well, hopefully we can get a bunch of good years instead of worrying that you're not the perfect candidate. So, if you have any other questions, put them in the chat or in the comments after as a replay. I'll come back and check and see if I can help. Thank you for attending and good luck.